under quite a bit of stress here. Unemployment levels continue to be very high. Claims came in again this week at 1 million. So another million people unemployed. So that is definitely weighing on the consumer. So the key here is, do we get that additional stimulus or not? And our belief is that we will get the stimulus. It could take some additional weakness in the consumer. It could even take some market weakness before Congress comes together and passes that package. But that's really what we think it's going to take.
Jason, where would you be in the market? I mean, as we're talking about these risks, especially, the consumer confidence number this week was not great. So, you could say as an investor, all right, you have to think through these scenarios. It weakens a little bit. We get the move from Congress. Boom, we can kind of look through to the other side. Are you rotating? Where are you? Tell me about, tactically speaking, what's your advice here?
So we're not rotating. Like we do like equities. We think there's still more upside. I think we're going to get that fiscal policy package. And it's also, on the medical front, things are progressing there that, I think will buoy the market. It's going to keep the market from pulling back too much. But for this rotation that the market's been debating about in terms of growth versus value, we're neutral there. Where we'd like to get some more maybe exposure to potential recovery is in mid-cap equities. Typically, they perform well in the recovery stage, and they haven't outperformed just yet, but we think that's going to kick in. And it doesn't quite have the exposure to, say, financials that the value trade would have. And then in terms of kind of the global recovery, industrials is another sector that we like. So we're kind of dipping our toes, you could say, into like adding a little bit of cyclical exposure and recovery. We still think that's going to materialize. I think until we get a clear signs of a full-scale recovery, I think that's going to require a vaccine. I think that's the market consensus. You're not going to get that sustained rotation. So I think just overall being allocated to equities versus fixed income, but not being sort of overly aggressive in terms of taking cyclical risk at this time.
I mean, that's interesting that you think we're not going to have a real rotation into the value names until we get a vaccine. I mean, I'd have to think a lot of people, Tracy, are going to rotate before that if they think we're on track, or maybe not. Maybe you just have to wait and see on this one. I know you guys are looking at things more globally speaking, but, same question I just asked Jason, what would your advice to investors be here?
Yeah, so, with the news from the Fed yesterday about keeping rates lower for longer and the inflation average targeting, that means that now investors really have to stop and think, do you want to be in cash earning nothing? Do you want to be in a treasury earning 75 basis points, call it? Or do you want to take more risk and move into high yield where you're getting that additional yield? Do you want to be in the large cap stocks where you're getting a dividend of 1.73%? And we think that means that there's this rotation out of the safer asset classes into those riskier asset classes. And that's where we're telling investors we want them to go, especially if we see a pullback here in the next couple of months. So large caps, mid caps over small, U.S. over domestic over international, and high yield over investment grade.
All right. Well, I haven't heard this much enthusiasm for mid-cap stocks and maybe ever. Thank you both very much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. Jason Draho and Tracy McMillan. Meantime, everyone seems to want a piece of TikTok as speculation grows around who could end up buying the app while the clock keeps ticking on a potential shutdown of it in the U.S. It's a lot to handle for TikTok's new interim CEO. Julia Borston caught up with her earlier today. She joins us now with more. Julia.
Well, Kelly, TikTok's new interim head, Victoria Pappas, taking the helm after the abrupt departure of TikTok CEO Kevin Mayer. Pappas tells us she's not directly involved in deal negotiations, but here's what she said when I asked her which buyer would make the most sense.
If you look at the various players and the partners that we're hearing from, I think they're amazing tech companies. Oracle has its strengths in terms of being a leading data infrastructure company and focused on security. Microsoft as well, great security and privacy platform, as well as everything they're doing with the cloud. So yeah, I think amazing, reputable companies, and we're certainly flattered for that.
As for Walmart joining Microsoft's bid, Vanessa Pappas, sorry I got that wrong earlier, Vanessa Pappas said Walmart is interesting, pointing to natural synergies and saying that TikTok has been rolling out e-commerce features. Pappas telling us that she's confident about the future success of TikTok, even as they prepare for all potential contingencies, including the potential that the app could be shut down. Kelly?
Julia, with all of these distractions, with all the questions about its future viability still hanging over TikTok with this potential ownership change, what about rivals? There's plenty out there who would love to steal TikTok's thunder. Instagram launched, what's it called, Reels? I mean, is this giving a bigger opening to others to come in?
You're absolutely right, Kelly. I asked her about Facebook's Reels, which had just rolled out here in the U.S. a couple weeks ago. She really just stressed, she returned to her party line, stressed the positivity and the enthusiasm of creators for TikTok. She did say specifically that they have not seen a decrease either in terms of their users or in terms of creators or advertisers due to all of this noise around the potential deal and the potential shutdown. So there's certainly a lot of companies, not just Facebook, also apps such as Triller, trying to get some of that activity that TikTok has really tapped into, that user base, the young user base that's so hard to reach. But she says it hasn't really had an impact just yet.
Yeah, and we'll see if that changes after everything that happens in the weeks and months ahead. Julia, thanks very much. Great stuff. Julia Borson speaking with the new interim CEO of TikTok USA, I should say. Coming up, forget Apple and Amazon. If you're looking for gains, head to the electric vehicle market. We're talking moves of more than 300%. We'll look at the charts to see who may be due for a breakdown. Plus, Facebook claims Apple silenced them when it came to transparency over the App Store pricing. We've got the details and the evolutions of Jay Powell. We're back after this quick break.